start coming on up. Matt is, as I mentioned, he and his wife are expecting their first child, I don't know, whatever, 32-ish weeks, I imagine, from now. But Matt also is involved in our college career ministry, as well as doing some prison ministry things with Kairos, which is a really neat opportunity that we have to serve in prison. So he's going to share about a recent outing, I guess you could say, that they had. So.
Thanks, Eddie. Yeah, really today what I want to talk to you about is really just to give you a report from the Kairos weekend. Many of you were very supportive in this, baking cookies, dozens of cookies. I don't know how many this whole church provided, but I think we ended up having something like 3,000 dozen cookies for the whole weekend. So I'm sure y'all donated at least 200 or 300 or 400 dozen. We had plenty of them. But I just wanted to give you just a report for the whole weekend. We went February 24th to the 27th, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to tell you exactly about it. And I was talking to my mom last night about it, and she was like, "You need to really give an overview of what Kairos actually is. You don't need to just jump into some of the stories of what happened." And I'm definitely going to share some of those things, but I just wanted to give you a brief history of what Kairos is. Where has it been? How did it kind of get started? And really, the overall purpose of Kairos is to globally reach incarcerated men and women for Christ and to make disciples for His glory. And they've been doing this. Right now, they're currently active in 350 prisons, and this is in the U.S. and about 30 states, and then also internationally in the U.K., Costa Rica, or some of the other countries they're involved in. But it originally started in Florida back in the 70s, and then it came to Louisiana and Angola in the early 90s. So they've been in Angola for this past weekend was the 52nd Kairos weekend they've done there. So they've been there for a good long time. And it started back in there when Angola was considered one of America's bloodiest prisons. Let's talk about, I'm just going to kind of go through and share some of the stories and things that happened along the way. Over this 4-day weekend, what did we actually do? Well, we went in there and we shared Christ, we shared His Word. We also shared in humility. We got personal with these guys. We started telling them things about what's happened in our lives, how Christ has influenced our lives and changed us, and used His Word to do it. And we did it in love. We didn't do it from a judgmental standpoint. These guys, if you can think about a convict, they've been called convicts most of their lives since they've been in prison, and we went in there and treated them with dignity, as human beings. Because if we all stand before God today, apart from Christ, we're all guilty. We're all condemned from Him. But that's why we share Christ with them, because we're no different. A Kairos weekend, it's a highly structured event. It's a 4-day weekend. There's talks that go along, and I want to highlight a couple things about the talks. What the talks are is, we're sitting with the men, and then one of our team members, there was about 45 people on our team, and we had about 10 of these talks that went on through the whole weekend, through the 4 days. And so what these talks, it allows our men to get up there and share from a personal standpoint what the Lord has done in their lives. And through these talks, we share through the character of God. We also go through and share about the gospel, and it's just really great to see how the men respond over the whole weekend. For the table families, we want to be with the men the whole time. We don't want to just put them in rows and chairs and stuff. We actually sit with them. So we have table families. So we organize the men. We have them. There's 42 prisoners that come into Kairos each time for this big weekend, and we divide them up. 6 of them per table, sitting with 3 of us around the table. So my role this past time, I was sitting at a table. I was allowed to give a talk this time, and I just wanted to kind of share a little bit about that. But there's some other things going on around behind the scenes. There's a cook team that goes in. There's logistics. There's table service. There's people that are, if you think about it, a prisoner can only go through a Kairos one time. He only gets one time to go through, but he is allowed to come back through later on as a servant. He can come back on, especially if he's involved in the chaplain's ministries, and he can be selected to come back in and serve the tables as we go throughout the weekend. Because we're there, Thursday night we're there from about 4 o'clock till about 8, and then each day we're there from 7 till about 7, 7:30. So we need their support as well. So that's a little bit about the behind the scenes, some of the structure. So here's a couple of the stories that I thought were very personal to me, and some of the things that I saw how God was working. It was on Friday. On Friday, we spent some time going through a couple of talks on forgiveness. And during this time, we were in the chapel doing our chapel meditation, and one of the speakers got up and shared. He shared about the love of Christ, that He came to take away sin. That and a lot of these guys, if you can imagine, some of the things they've done, some of the things they know they've done, they've committed some great sins. And what they don't realize sometimes is that Christ's death was good enough to atone for them. And that's one of the messages we really stress for this weekend. Is it doesn't matter what you have done in the past, but what you're going forward with is Jesus Christ. And He is there, and He's done what is effective on the cross to redeem you from your sins. And towards the end of the second meditation, we were all led to bow our heads, and the team members, the guys on the outside like me, at this time, this is where we were able to offer up a short prayer to the Lord, which is out in the open with all the men, and it was something simple like, Lord, forgive my bitterness, Lord, forgive my idolatry, Lord, forgive me for still trying to control my life. And then one of the residents, of course, started following suit. They started saying their own things, and one of the residents threw up there, Lord, forgive my homosexuality. And I was really just taken aback at that, because we hear a lot about the church about this. This comes in, that's one of the staple sins today of being homosexual or whatever. Well, it struck me that all we had done to this man is come in and tell him about Christ. Show him forgiveness, show him love by serving him dinner, by treating him as a human being, by listening to him, by talking to him. Now, there was truth there. We weren't trying to hide the truth of what Jesus came, that He came to redeem people from hell. That was true. But we did come in there with truth and love, and this is what we get. And it just showed me that, the verse that kept kind of going through my head is John 13:35. It says, by this all people will know that you're my disciples, if you have love for one another. And that's what we did. We just came in to love them, and that's what produces real change. That's how Christ works through this. It was unexpected in a very good way. We told them when we came in there, we weren't there to come in and change them. We didn't have any expectations for them, but we did invite them to share about what Christ was doing in their heart, about some of the experiences they've had over the years. So now I want to tell you a little more about another story of what happened over the weekend, another story of love. On Saturday, now this is the third day in, okay? In the middle of the day, I guess towards the end of the day, maybe about 3 o'clock, what we do is we present to them the agape bags. Now, what an agape bag is it has in it children's drawings. Now, when I talked to y'all earlier, about this, I didn't mention the children's drawings because we had a surplus of these. But I'll tell you, these are one of the most effective things that really show the love of God to these men. And like a kid drawing on a piece of paper, he can draw something on there and say, God loves you. That really grips a prisoner's heart when they see that. So there was things like that in there. Another thing that was in there was letters. All of us on the team wrote letters. Each of us, there's 45 people on the team. We came in and wrote a personal letter to each of the men, to the 42 men. So that's a lot of letters. So they're sitting there opening these letters. And if you can imagine, an incarcerated man, say he's been there for 20 years, he hardly ever gets any visits anymore. Usually by this point his parents, his mom is gone. Usually the mom was the last one to visit. And then at that point, letters, even if they did get a letter, they don't get to open it. It's open it's pre-screened. It's looked over. The administration there is looking for things in there to try to make sure they're still safe. They want to maintain the safety of the prison, so they have to review these things. Well, we're allowed through Kairos, one of the benefits, we get to go in there and write them letters in sealed envelopes and give them to them. And you can imagine how tearful they are and how overcome by emotion they are to read these letters of God's love and what He's done for them. Well, there was this one man who could not read, or he could speak English, but he couldn't read English. He was originally from Vietnam, and he spoke Vietnamese. And one of our team members at the table really felt the Lord put on his heart that he needed to do something a little different for this man, because